Playday number 3 is coming at you right now for NACL, the 2022 Stage 2 edition. I'm your host, Brimstone, and I've got Connor and Tanner with me, of course, that being CDAPS and Forceful, in case you didn't know them by their first names and only their official monikers. Yeah, right. I mean, it's all written there for you. You shouldn't need me to tell you, but I figure I'd give them a proper introduction. Okay, guys, we're 1 weekend through. That means 2 play days we've seen. Some of these teams have even played 3 games across that first weekend. There's a lot to unfold. Connor, it was a wild weekend. You know, these teams, Elyssar is winless. Like, this is not the stage 1 that we saw. This is completely different.
Yeah, this is a point where at this exact time, like Playday 3, Playday 4 kind of scenario with LSR, all of us on the desk were saying, you know what? There's no way that LSR could possibly choke this. They look so incredibly good. They came out and they started 3-0 and boom, all of a sudden they dropped to about like 4th or 5th, and now, you double that number and they're all the way in 10th. Sure, their first 2 games were a little bit rough. They're playing in strong teams that are up towards the, top of the table, your one shots and your rent frees. Those aren't really easy games, and hopefully towards the latter half of their season, they'll start picking up more points, as they also will kind of start to integrate with Wimpy onto their roster move. And sort of when you reach rock bottom, all you can do is go up. And hopefully for LSR, as well as Gaming Gladiators down there, they do start to bounce up, as well as kind of trying to rejoin some of the players they used to play against, like your one shots, like your rent frees, who've come out the gates swinging. Rent free in particular, if you don't recognize the name, that's because they are new this stage. They came through quals, and all of a sudden they're sitting in the number 1 spot.
Well, let's talk about that for a second as we see the player leaderboards as well. Because Tanner, it seems to be the theme of this stage is in with the new because of all the rookies that are popping off, and then Rent Free being the new team, just explosive from the get go.
Absolutely. And this is like one of those seasons where you're starting to see individual gameplay, take the forefront. There's a lot more frags. You see a lot of players getting high into the double digits with their frags. And then just touching on what you're talking about in terms of the rookies, like you look at our top 5 player ratings: Doc, Snake, Gavin, Dexter. Those are, sorry, Doc, Gavin, and Dexter. Like 3 of 5 of those are brand new rookies. Like they just came in this stage. And I think what we're seeing right now, and we've been talking about this all past weekend, is some of the most explosive and most competitive Challenger League we've seen in a long time. Couple stats though that kind of like just blow my mind when I actually look at it though. Dexter with the +9 entry differential, like we've seen players go an entire stage and not even be able to hit those numbers. He was able to do it in 2 play days. And then Kilo with a 85 cost over 2 games. The guy has been absolutely crucial for a roster that's been showing up on the at the top of the leaderboard. They're flawless throughout all their gameplays. They're making every team look silly, and a large component of that is because of Kilo showing up and just being an absolute monster every single time he enters the battlefield.
Yeah, they've only played 2 matches, whereas Rent Free does have 3 under their belt, kind of giving them a bit of a slight advantage in the points. But the first matchup of the day doesn't feature One Shot or Rent Free. We're actually going to be looking at LSR, who we just mentioned, and then Arial Arise, 2 teams with very big expectations. Arial Arise, somewhat meeting them so far. LSR Forceful, not exactly. There's a lot to be that they've left wanted.
Yeah, I mean, this roster has been a team that's been in Challenger League for a long time. It's one that we've put a very high standard on during their entire duration. They're always a team that we're like, this team should be performing towards the top. And time after time after time, we're seeing them underperform and not being able to reach those heights. Yes, in stage 1, they managed to squeak into the top 4. Yes, they were only 1 point behind first place or 2 points behind first place. But this stage, they've just looked absolutely flat. They've got a -7 round differential, and they're 0-2 in their 2 games that they played. All their players aren't showing up in the way that they need to be. And the only one who's really standing out to me is young Alec, who is putting up some positive numbers on his entry and how he's going in and getting these picks. But then after that, it feels like the whole round is going flat. They don't look like the same team that they were in stage 1 without Kento, with the introduction of now Wimpy.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the other side of Arial Arise, they're doing well. On the surface, it looks well. They're 2-1, but this is 1 regulation win, 1 overtime win, and then 1 regulation loss. With the expectations as high as they are on Arial Arise, you'd think maybe it would be a bit better than that.
Yeah, especially because Ariel Arise, by all metrics, kind of should have won last stage. They choked to Gasher in an off-stream game right at the very end, and it is just unfortunate. And then this roster from stage 1 to stage 2, guess what? They are the only team that has not made any roster moves at all. The only thing that happened was they lost one of their support staff, but kind of in the game when you have players inside the lobby, that shouldn't make as much of a difference as kind of making a roster move itself. The loss of Smitty is going to hurt, but you can't
Mhm.
really use that as much of an excuse as how they came out against Nocturnes, where they looked completely flat and they just got absolutely steamrolled by an aggressive team. And then kind of when we saw them push through against Card and Co. in the upcoming playdays, this is where we saw the aerial rise that we wanted to know, because Freak was popping off. Mohes was actually getting involved in some aggressive early round engagements. And that's where Aerial Arise really does start to shine. If you look down at the stats, I mean, Freak barely went positive in the first two games, and then now he's +6 and he's getting 30 kills because he dropped almost 20 of them in one match. And that's the sort of Freak that we need to see for the rest of the stage.
Mhm. So jumping back into LSR, let's get a little more critical with them, Tanner. Is this a matter of small sample size, 2 games in, you got to win some, you got to lose some, or are there some actual issues that you see?
Yeah, there's definitely some actual issues that I've seen. It's namely coming in on their attack half. I feel like attacking right now is definitely their weakness. They're very slow. They're not getting their
Mhm.
information. Yes, they're getting entry picks, but then it doesn't even matter that they're getting these picks because they're not, getting to their jobs in time. They're not getting their hatches open. They're not getting their vert pressure in time. And then what ends up happening, and we saw this versus One Shot last week, they just end up funneling into sight, into all the utility, into crossfires, into smoke canisters, and they're just like not able to pull out anything. They're not able to pull out these round wins. And I think that's kind of like a critical issue that Kento was kind of solving for him, because he was kind of just the I'm going to go get it done kind of guy. And now they're lacking that. And it feels like their entry, like they're lacking that umph on like getting to what they need to get to. Overall, critically, like this teams look like a husk of their former selves. They need the rest of their teammates to step up if they're going to have any success. I'm looking for, the other names other than just young Alec to kind of pop up. We saw Wimpy come in. He had a really good stage one with the side of Parabellum. Now it's time for him to demonstrate that he can continue that spree here in Challenge League. And then, like I said, pacing, pacing, pacing. That's just been their biggest issue. They need to pick up this pace. Their hard supports need to get to their jobs. Their
Mhm.
guys who are clearing utility need to get to their jobs, and they need to start making something happen out of these entry picks they get, because if not, Aerial Rise is going to roll all over them like they have throughout the history of these two teams.
Mhm. And Connor, I believe when we were talking about Aerial Rise last week, we really felt like, for them to improve their record, it's only kind of minor changes that that team needs to make. There weren't any major issues. Just, tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, and so that's why my critical points are kind of the opposite of Tanner's, where Tanner's with
Mhm.
LSR is like, yes, you need to look within and change yourself. And here for Aerial Arise, it's kind of focus on what's wrong with LSR and then take advantage of that.
Mm.
So, main
Mm.
thing, take that pressure dial and crank it all the way up. Start selling tickets to the Freak and Mo GN show and just get them involved. I want to see 10 kills on each of them, their scorecards by the end of the first half, because if you get this pressure early and often, you establish the roam, or you get them getting into the building fast, fast,
Mhm.
fast, following drones on the entry, depending on what side they start on the attack or the defense, it's going to get the momentum rolling for Aerial Arise. And it's just going to kind of really make the issues on the side of LSR just grow, manifest, fester. And even with the defensive side, like I was saying, sure, cranking up the pressure is good on the attack or the defensive roam. The biggest thing is when you fall off on the roams, a lot of times you want to just kind of initially show pressure and then peel
Mhm.
back. Against a team like LSR, you don't ever need to retreat. Don't retreat. Play your life. Play that map control, because if LSR has to pay for it in blood, it'll slow them down a lot, and your angers are going to have a pretty easy time just sitting behind a few toxic babe canisters and having close range shotgun fights.
I feel
Mm.
like what's, working in favor of Aerial Rise right now, Connor, is that when you need to put on the pressure in moments like this, when you're going into the map veto, the pressure's already on. The pressure is on LSR to get this map pick right, because you can't afford to lose it, Tanner, in this early of a stage in just picking the map.
Well, honestly, I don't think there's a way that they're going to be able to win this. The big map that I'm kind of looking for, if we can keep scrolling through here, is Bank. Like, where is Bank on this? Because the last two times these two teams played, it was on Bank, and LSR lost both of them. And there you go. So Bank is out of the map
Mm.
pool. If I'm LSR, I'm trying to take them to one of these equalizer maps. Those are the maps that Aerial Rise have kind of looked a little bit weaker. We're talking about the Oregons and the Clubhouse. And if I'm Aerial Rise, I'm going to try and take them to one of my more dominant maps. But it looks like it's going to be one of these equalizer
It's
maps.
yeah, it's one of the two.
So actually, you know what? I take everything I said back. I think this is a really good map choice for Elyssar. We did see Arial Rise win this last week versus Karn and Co., but it was in overtime. It wasn't 8-6. It really did take Arial Arise a really long time to get going. They only started showing up in the 10th round or so, specifically Mohesi, who was like, I think he was 4-8, and then he
4 and
finished the
8.
game
Yep.
14-8, right? After round
Yeah.
10. So, Arial Rise, they can show dominance on this map. Like those last 5 rounds last week were pure dominance from them. If they could show up with that round 1, maybe this is a good map for them. Otherwise, I actually really like this choice for Elyssar. I think this is a really good, comfortable pick for them to go to. And this might be one of those games that could go kind of back and forth.
Do you think, Connor, in a map veto scenario where you've got a team kind of like on their heels, kind of where you want them, it's interesting that they let it get down to the 2 equalizers. Now, I don't want to speak for Arial Arise, but interesting that they let it get to the 2 equalizers and then essentially let Elyssar have their pick of the 2.
Yeah, I think when it kind of came down to those final 2 options, for Arial Arise to have left the Oregon that they looked incredibly rough upon, where they let Nocturnes just go ahead and take all their lunch money and spend it on whatever they wanted, it's gonna kind of indicate to me that Arial Arise is already starting to work behind the scenes. They probably tweaked a few things on their Oregon. They were hitting the dry runs, they were hitting the double scrims, they were in the CCS Discord, the SCS Discord, all the T3 leagues being like, hey, guess what? We need scrims at 11 p.m. at night because that's how hard we're grinding. So hopefully for Arial Arise, they have tweaked things. And even with how they looked last week against Card & Co., who is a phenomenal and always has been a very, very good Clubhouse team, to win that game does mean that they're more comfortable on this map. It might have been a little bit of a trap card for the side of Elyssar that was laid from Arial Arise, so it might be a tad worrying. But, I think things can still go either way, because when you have a Clubhouse, it kind of just does boil down to who's shooting better to a certain extent, as long as teams have their fundamentals down, which you would hope, capital HOP and E, you would hope that teams at a Challenger League level have.
Well, I think it's important right now to find out our predictions. I think the players are almost ready, so we don't want to keep them waiting too long. Now, excuse me, a bit of a tingle going on here. I was just surprised to see that 2 of our analysts have gone with. Okay, Connor. I need you to talk just a little bit more. I'll give Tanner his second before we get into the match. What's going on here with you and Cookies? Sorry.
Oh no! See, me and Cookies are having a conversation, as you can see by our 2 images. That's what it looks like. We're talking to each other.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how this right here, right now, this Playday is the final week that we give any trust to Elyssar. This is their this is their come to Jesus moment.
I even see Jonah's
back,
image looks like he's looking over there going, what do they vote? That's a little confusing over there. Forceful's unimpressed in his. He's like, no, these guys. Forceful, give it to us straight. What's happening right now?
No, I'm done swapping my answers. I do all this research on the weekends to get prepared, and then a flip flop because of the map choices. I'm sticking with my guns here. Arial Arise, I'm just gonna say the facts. Arial Arise has not lost to the Elyssar or Vivid roster since 2020 in Challenger League. That's it. That's all it is. There's nothing else. This roster is one of those ones that we had kind of read like a book. They don't really change much very often, and they're playing very similar to how they have historically. So I'm giving it to to Arial Arise. I believe they're a roster that's going to be able to read into that, punish their weaknesses. And even though it's going to this map, right, and we're kind of hesitant on it, Arial Arise is a team that can learn from their mistakes. They've got a really robust coaching staff that will help them out with that. I'm very confident Arial Arise will pull out with the win today.
Well, no jabs for Tanner, just uppercuts, and we're going to get into this bout right now. They are going to go to Clubhouse. It's going to be Elyssar taking on Arial Arise.
Thank you very much, Brimstone. Hello, everybody. I am Lynx, joined with fellow to my, I suppose, right. I always forget the directions when we're online. It's always so weird. But going into this, you and I obviously both picked Arial Arise, John. And for me, it comes down to similar to what Connor said. Clubhouse is very much a map that's played out strategically where you need to have your guns come alive. And for Elyssar, especially looking at players, unfortunately, like Wimpy, it's just not been something we could count on the first couple play days.
For example, going in a bank, a map where you have to spend a lot of time going on those roam clears, I feel like you can replicate that on a map like Clubhouse, not to the same extent, but still put in the right scenarios. A lot of time can be wasted by Elyssar, and if they continue to lose important operators that are really helpful for clearing out those executes fast, it could be in for some deep trouble against Arial Arise going into this map, especially now that it seems like by reattempting this map pick after almost losing to Card & Co., that they have this new sign of confidence, I guess, reattempting this place.
Yeah, maybe we'll see Mohes pick things up a little bit earlier on, and maybe Freak as well also pick things up a little bit early on, because we saw when Elyssar in that very first game played rent-free on Saturday, how troublesome it was when they met an entry who could do their job and then some. Now, to be fair, Dexter is a little bit of an outlier in NACL so far with just how strong he was on the entry game. I think he's like +8 right now or something like that. A ridiculous stat, either way, through and through, coming out from Dexter. But the point still stands for even half of that entry stat. If Freak and Mojes are able to bring a very aggressive and very solid performance on attack or on defense, either way, but have a very solid early round against Elyssar, where they struggled against it with Dexter, it's very worrying for them, even if going to an equalizer map might boost their chances.
And although it did take a lot of time for Arial to eventually adapt and beat Unemployment going in 8-6 on the Clubhouse match, eventually they still did. If they get a good read early on as to how Elyssar are going to play today, it seems like on paper they should have pretty clear waters just passing in through Clubhouse. So that probably makes a lot of sense. That's why a majority of us probably went in and voted in for Arial, except for, you know, both CJ and Connor. So, again, this just looks to be a pretty strong setup here for Arial. Let's just hope that they were able to change enough stuff to properly get the show on the road.
Yeah, I was a similar mindset to CJ and Connor. At least when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, I think Arial are going to win. But I want Elyssar to succeed. I want this core to succeed. It seemed like they were on the come up with, you know, IF back in Stage 3, making a fairly solid run in playoffs, you know, even beating Parabellum in one of the first series of the entire playoffs. Had a little bit of struggle in last stage. Thought maybe, you know, it's just bringing young Alec onto the roster, trying to get acclimated to things. But now, I've already kind of backed off a little bit, and I'm a little hesitant to predict them. I do think they're not going to stay on that 10th place spot for the rest of the stage, and if they do, I'd be incredibly shocked. But at least for right now, I'm feeling Arial Arise all the way on Clubhouse. But we'll find out whether or not that stands the test of time or the test of 12 to 15 rounds of Rainbow Six. Of course, we have Elyssar versus Arial Arise on Club, and Arial Arise will be starting on that attacking side, so we can see if Mojes and Freak can turn things up quickly.
See if those tickets have been, in fact, purchased by Arial, like Connor was alluding to over during the desk segment. Seems like for the first set of bans, we're probably going to see some normal stuff. Wouldn't be too shocked if we have, you know, the Thatcher, maybe a Maverick or Habana band as well. All typical stuff. Maverick is incredibly effective at opening walls, like that platform wall, like Jacuzzi wall as well, and can even be utilized to open up some of the hatches if the Habana is banned, for example, or if there is a Kate on the board. So overall, a great operator to bring in through your arsenal. Thatcher being banned as well, all pretty normal stuff you tend to see, all stock standard for Clubhouse. Really nothing too shocking so far.
And we'll likely have the Cade follow-up by Arial Arise, but no, we'll see the Wamai, and sometimes this will happen, and usually we'll see maybe the team that just banned either the Mav or the Thatcher, whoever banned second for the attack, ban another operator, and then force, in this case, Elyssar to say, okay, do you want to leave the Cade up and make that really strong for the defense, or do you want to ban it out and level the playing field? They'll go with the latter option. Even though Elyssar are starting on the defense and might have been able to get even, I don't know if a couple rounds on the board, but at least make things a lot closer and a lot more difficult for Arial Arise. It's the kind of thing where leaving the Cade up on the board, it's just too big of a risk.
I could imagine that we might want to see Elyssar at some point try to go for more of a roam-orientated kind of setup when they end up picking the basement site. But for now, they'll start off with CCTV and Cash Room, probably one of the weaker sites nowadays. They do have the Bandit on the board, so if they want to, they could go in for a Bandit trick potentially, especially since, you know, the Thatcher is off the board, so is Maverick. So that could allow for just a longer time being held over near the plat wall, or maybe utilizing those Bandit batteries either on the single wall over near Cash Room leading to construction, or the garage walls as well. Whatever tickles his fancy. Either way, it's going to slow down the offense for the time being and potentially allow them just to keep a bigger portion of the map in their pocket for a while.
We do have a few key operators on the board for Elyssar on the defense right now. Of course, if you were not aware, Mira is still quarantined out of pro play, just to make sure we don't have to deal with any bugs. But also, since that Wamai ban came through for Arial Arise, that means both Valkyrie and Azami will be up on Clubhouse. Valkyrie, obviously, her impact does not need to be stated. She's been perma-banned for a long time now for obvious reasons. Very powerful utility gadget, and also in combination with that C4, can make a lot of sites a lot more easier to roam or even just hold on normally. But young Alec being on that Azami, you'll likely see him playing where that Wamai would otherwise play on CCTV and Raptors, well, on the rafters, setting up those Kiva barriers for deployable shields almost to play behind and make that position a lot easier to deal with, and also give the attackers one more thing to decide what they want to use their nades on.
Really big fan of Reed, though, opting to go for that Capitao again with Wamai being banned. That's really the only hard counter that you tend to see for that Capitao. He also brings secondary hard breach, with you can then allow your Thermite to just focus on getting the main walls opened up, and then you can have a couple of kill holes allocated over near garage as well. It really almost fully confirms that you're going to have a pretty straightforward time clearing out that player over near top rafters, so long as you get the timing right, which a lot of teams can tend to struggle with, which, you know, could allow Young Alec to find a couple of kills, but again, so long as the information is there, the utility spam is clean, they should have really little to no trouble, especially if they get that plat wall opened up early on.
First nade tossed out by Mohes, but first kill goes the way of Elyssar. Inrio sitting down on top secret at the moment, gets Reed sync, that sled for that first pick, and that's a set of nades now gone, and also just one body that, well, apparently Arial or Rise are not able to trade out with everyone being outside of the building. We have a couple players set up on positions to watch for any potential rotates. Of course, somebody on that garage repelled, watch the construction window, somebody downstairs in main to see if Inrio decides to get aggressive inside of secret, but neither have decided to take that course of action, or neither counterpart on the defense has decided to take that course of action, and Arial now turning their attention towards garage to try and take down Young Alec.
Getting both the upper right wall opened up and also the main breach too, to begin to funnel your way in through two different directions, both the garage door and also that main breach we just saw opened up by Jay's exothermic charge. And again, with, for the most part, probably just a couple ADSs put in that position near rafters, this should not be too difficult of a position to flush out, but now that Enrio has rotated over into the bottom of Oil Pit, that is going to allow a little more resistance over towards Young Alec, just to make his life much easier in comparison as if he were to fully lock down this one location by himself.
Freak will drop off of the flat wall as Reed goes into garage, capping out firebolts, landing directly on Young Alec, and that is an expert clear of the rafters position. Mo cognizant that there might be someone down in the Oil Pit, but Inrio has already given up that position and started rotating towards red stairs, or at least towards lounge. 50 seconds now remaining for Elyssar to hold off this attack, or for Arial or Rise to start pushing in. One C4 still alive for Elyssar. It's in the pocket of Giddy right now, and in that position, alongside Vivid with those 3 smoke canisters, can deny this plant more than easily with the only 38 seconds remaining for the attack. So Reed and everyone for Arial or Rise right now have to be wary of, 1, where they decide to go for the plant, but 2, as I was about to say, watching down below, Freak is now moved into lounge and taken down Inrio. Not the man with the C4, but still someone you don't want to have possibly playing vertical who could take down the planter from below. Wimpy now moving on up, but he walks right into the crosshairs of Mohes. Giddy running out of friends to depend on when he throws this C4. It lands properly, though. He might fall, but he gets the planter. That leaves only Vivid left. He's got a toxic canister, but the moment for that utility has now passed. He's got 8 seconds, but he needs to start working his way up. Jay is on 1 HP. Might be able to land it if he lands the smoke properly, and yes, he does! He could win this behind the shield, unless somebody picks it up and starts planting, but nobody has time! Expert 1v3 by Vivid to start out Clubhouse for Elyssar.
And I love the rotation done by Freak as well, but a really weird thing is he was actually getting the diffuser down, funny enough. We saw it on the highlight. He might have died to the toxic smoke, don't get me wrong, but I really feel like we should have gone into the post-plant situation, but I digress. Really strong hold by the smoke just to at least to hold down that inevitable 1vx position, especially when you had Freak do a fantastic job of not just remaining stagnant over near rafters. He moved underneath, potentially expecting a nitro cell play or a potential flank, as we still had the Valkyrie prowling about over near that first floor. And not only can you eliminate that flank presence, but you could also either work your way up red stairs or go for grenades to, at the end of the day, weaken that overall site presence to allow a much easier time working your way in past Raptors and trying to get that plant down. I also love the positioning done over near Platwall as well to also reestablish that top floor control, but still, Elyssar able to claw their way out and take the first round relatively well, at least during the final 10 seconds, I suppose.
Also able to win CCTV, a site that, as you said, is definitely not favorable for
weaker
the
than what it
defense
used to
anymore.
be.
Yeah, much weaker than what it used to be. Probably one of, if not the weakest site on Clubhouse, at least one that is routinely gone to. Bar and stage is a completely separate topic, but getting CCTV out of the way and now having a lot of time and breathing room to focus on gym, bedroom, and basement, that's a big win for Elyssar to start out. Of course, still have to win gym, bedroom, but just winning a site that you typically are not expected to. Of course, for gym, bedroom, we'll see Elyssar rotate, or roam, I should say, all the way over inside of CCTV, and don't see them holding on red stairs. That'd be a very heavy commit, but instead just focus on that CCTV and cache section of the map.
Interested to see potentially how Arial wants to fully adapt around this main CCTV extension. Seems like they go for the default as of right now. Reed just getting open that plat wall. Already getting Logi Hatch opened up as well. And it seems like Jacuzzi is going to be the main point of contention for Arial Rise across the ways, but they need to remove these bandit batteries. Thankfully, with no ADSs in sight, they can just go and throw in a grenade through that drone hole and get one of these back walls opened up. Both the batteries being destroyed, allowing Jay to do his job on the heart breach. And again, just opening up a new line of sight for Arial Rise to potentially use later, as it seems they're not going to immediately aggress into that position just yet.
Wimpy can contest that Jacuzzi wall with that left panel opened up inside a bathroom. If he wants to get aggressive, he can, but Arial Arise seem to be now shifting their focus at least a little bit over towards construction and CCTV. Still a few attackers over towards Jacuzzi. One on top of the roof right now, likely looking to either throw a nade down towards Vivid at some point in the round or catch him rotating to a different position. As I stand corrected, they were not even remotely shifting their focus to CCTV and cache. Everyone from Arial Arise is now over towards this western part of the map.
I mean, as long as they can have the right amount of utility in terms of those grenades, they could potentially find a couple of kills here and there, just having the timing correct on those nade hooks. A minute 20 left to go, and it seems like Freak is potentially waiting for another flank. He was good at denying it last time from the hand of Inrio, but as of right now, it seems like Elyssar is just remaining passive and forcing Arial Arise to make that first move.
First nade missed by Reed Sync, so Wimpy's reinforced wall that's currently electrified will remain alive for the time being. Arial Arise are running out of nades. 2/3 of their supply depleted. The only one left is with Freak. He can still get some good work from below. The first one goes through and only does a little bit of damage to Vivid, who's currently holding down those main stairs.
50 seconds remain, and yeah, it's still just a complete hard stall. No one's rotated around near Logi Hatch. Everyone is still just essentially trying to funnel their way down these main stairs, but Vivid just doing a great job of wasting not only that info game, but also the timer, because it's still getting closer and closer towards that 000 mark.
Ooh, getting closer and closer, but so do the kills. Remain even. The Wimpy takes the lead as Reed starts moving into the site, but that's main stairs control for the attack. A very key position. If Young Alec and Wimpy weren't alive, they can now hold a crossfire on top main. Wimpy swings it. Doesn't kill Freak, but does damage him a little bit. Inrio getting active outside, or inside of Jim, I should say. Swings Jay, takes him down. Wimpy with a second so far. Make that 3 as he peeks out of bathroom. And Elyssar take 2 in a row.
And unlike round 1, we didn't have a lot of proper rotations occurring by the side of Arial Arise. We had a huge cluster stacked up over near the middle of bar trying to go for those grenade tosses, and they just didn't meet their mark. Arial Arise were not able to secure that first entry and just didn't have a lot of time to readjust. They lost the first entry as well by Giddy, and it was just not a lot of map control to actually require a proper position to get into the site, potentially tease that plant, or at least just weaken that anchor presence. And Elyssar, they remained completely calm throughout that entire time. They were able to set back, sit in the site, look pretty, and now secure a second round. So, for the most part, a pretty good start for Elyssar.
This is an extremely good start. I mean, obviously because, well, they're 2-0, but also just because of how Clubhouse defenses have tended to go. Coming out 2-0, maybe even 3-0, if they end up winning basement, that is an extremely good start, especially when your results so far in CL were a 7-5 at best and a 7-2 as your most recent result. So good looking for Elyssar so far. For basement, it seems they'll be focusing mainly on things towards the side, as we actually have a Warden coming into play by Wimpy. Not too much in the way of flashes or smokes from Arial Arise, at least there are flashes, and maybe some smokes as well, but likely mainly for utility clear. But depending on where he's playing, maybe behind that AK position, if Arial Arise have some excess flashes to use, or maybe a Candela, as we saw Jay flex to the Ying for about half a second, could find some good use with those glasses.
Yeah, I definitely am a big fan of that selection on the Warden here for Wimpy, not only for the Ying like you highlighted, but also the fact that we have seen Reed opt to bring out the Capitao for that CCTV attack, and not only for those smoke nades, but also, of course, having those secondary breach. So it would make sense when there's no Maverick on the board to potentially help out getting some of those back walls opened up. That way you can still have some X-Kairos chargers, not the back wall, sorry, some of those hatches opened up, pardon, to allow Jay to utilize his range breach, especially if you want to go for one of those back takes over near triple wall and not just funnel your way in through the kitchen hatch and in through dirt tunnel as well. So I like the selection here by Wimpy just to specifically try to hard counter Arial Arise and make sure they don't get any leeway in this first half.
They have some leeway to take map control early, is because Elyssar are going for the defense, or at least some players going for the defense that you mentioned, and it's a consistent strategy throughout. Well, I was going to say that they'll focus on maybe taking some of that top floor control, but behind a Yana clone from Ohes, Freak immediately takes control of bottom main and even starts pushing into Moto. We still have 2 minutes remaining in the round, and the Finka has already started to take some dominion and take some control right outside the defender's home base. One player looking to swing very aggressively, that's Giddy with the shotgun, but Young Alec is the one who commits, and Young Alec is the one who falls. Not finished off, only downed inside of blue, but with Freak's bold play, he's gained a big foothold for Arial Arise.
At least with Wimpy able to revive Young Alec, it's still that 5 versus 5, but the damage that's already been dealt in the first half of this action phase has been pretty darn strong by Arial Arise. And again, that lack of a roam presence, it allowed a lot of map control early on, and we already have Arial Arise knocking in on the door frame, trying to get in the site, or at least trying to work another potential pick to really have that spearhead for the next minute 10.
Reedsink can also get as much vertical as he wants as well, now that so much work has been done down below on towards the site. He's already opened up quite a few holes on that kitchen floor. Reed can also start putting down some fire bolts or some smoke bolts, depending on if he wants to close off angles or drive defenders out of positions. But Elyssar have rotated in kind. Everyone shifted over towards the eastern side, more towards blue stairs or Wimpy's position behind AKs, with only one remaining inside of dirt. Arial Rise just have so much time to take all this control and do with it what they want. Freak will finally go on in. Young Alec from blue, unfortunately not able to cover. Taken down behind the bar as Giddy is three members of Elyssar all fall as Arial Rise's chess pieces start moving into place. Inrio keeps it close. 2v3 now. Both him and Vivid, the only two left alive, and in some key positions, but Inrio looking the wrong way. Somebody might swing. Instead rotates around. Nobody's looking at the moment. They're all focused on towards dirt, but no, Freak is looking that way. He gets both two remaining kills, and Arial Rise's first round to boot.
And the pacing was so much better by Arial Rise on that round. They noticed there was a lack of a roam presence at all during round number 3, so they wasted little to no time getting in that basement floor, getting those hatches opened up, and allowing Freak just to, well, be Freak, hold a powerful position, and just make the lives of Elyssar so much more difficult. They couldn't really aggressively swing as much as they wanted to. They couldn't stop Freak from getting inside of Moto and then eventually stepping in the building, picking the perfect opportunity to eliminate that player stacked up behind the brown boxes, that being the mute, I believe it to be, and also the hatch drop as well, really well timed, not allowing Vivid to close that gap with the shotgun, having that substantial man advantage, allowing the plant to go down. Overall, a much smoother presence by Arial Rise, to say the least.
Definitely much smoother and the kind of momentum shift that we would like to see if you're hoping for a close game. Elyssar have already started a good precedent with winning CCTV and Gym. Losing basement, of course, is not always great, but if they're able to recapture some of that success on CCTV, obviously, hopefully make it a little bit more concrete, as it did come down to Vivid clutching a 1v3 with some solid positioning and utility usage on red. Maybe Young Alec can try to hold down the fort a little bit more inside a garage, but with that with my band, those Cappy Down firebolts are oh so impactful. And keeping him alive beyond when he was already probably challenging. So definitely maybe trying to hold things down a little bit more on the site will be the recipe for this.
With Elyssar potentially acknowledging how difficult it was to hold on to Raptors for a decent chunk of time, it seems like they want to potentially alleviate some of that pressure by having Enrio back up Young Alec on that Azami pick and potentially have some kill holes moved around near Lounge as well. Jay trying to get this back wall opened up early on seemed to be quite successful, as there is no wall denial in that portion of the map. You could potentially pressure out Raptors much earlier in this round in comparison to the first one, but again, having that proper backup in the hand of Inrio could really go a long way, especially since having Raptors control is just oh so powerful for not only the defense, but of course the offense as well.
Arial were aware of it, though. I mean, you saw Mo checking that oil pit spot, seeing if maybe Inrio was there, and wow, that C4 kills him. Thought maybe he was just a little bit far enough away where it would do most of his health and damage, but wouldn't kill him. But that's a big pick, and another big pick, at least in terms of utility for Elyssar. They take down Freak, who single-handedly gained a huge swath of control for Arial Rise last round, and also take down Jay's remaining exothermic. There's one hard recharge remaining for Reed or for Arial Rise in general. They also get a pick, with Wimpy getting aggressive off the site.
Good equalizer there for Arial Rise. The roam game is still not fully dealt with despite eliminating Wimpy as he was over near Jim. Enrio was still prowling about near that first floor and is potentially looking to go for a flank as he's fully rotating around, but it seems like Reed is wise about this and begins to hold that position. Beautiful shot across the entire basement floor, and just like that, Arial Rise, they retake the lead.
Costs a little bit of HP, but Reedsink definitely coming away the one more happy with that engagement. But even in the 3v4 right now for Elyssar, the damage they have done cannot be overstated. Both exothermics wasted, or well, one opens up garage wall, but the key one, the one that opens plat, gone, eliminated by a bandit battery. You have that remaining hard breach charge, but what are you going to do? Vault in through plat wall? The hard breach charge? No. It's going to be a turkey shoot at that point. So you have to find some other direction to approach this attack from. That is what Arial Rise are trying to do right now. Decide, okay, where do we want to take this? Do we just want to try to commit, try to push Young Alec out of garage, or do we want to go for a full rotate? Or even just with these nades from below, try and find some picks onto the side. That's what Mohes is trying to do right now. And you might find one on Giddy, but oh, just a little bit too far away. Only puts him down to low HP, but could be finished off. Giddy keeps getting aggressive on these vertical angles, and maybe Mohes or Reed is lucky enough to spot him. Neither happening just yet. Mo waiting, though, hoping that Giddy will peek, but instead it's Reedsink to get his third kill of the round with another set of nades. What Mo was not able to do, Reedsink accomplishes. things are slowly going from bad to worse for Elyssar. They started out with such a good margin, such a wide lead, but Vivid has to clutch an even bigger margin than what he had to in round number 1. The 1v3 with utility, he made it work. Now he's got 1 kill. He's made it even closer with a beautiful shot onto Reed. He goes down below now. Arial committing. One's watching red. If he wins this fight, this could be round 3 for Elyssar. Watching down the stairway. Oh no, he dies to Mohess. A valiant effort by Vivid, but still Arial's second round to tie it up.
And the fact we had the roam clear eventually dealt with at a decent margin of time, that allowed the confidence to shine in through for Arial to comfortably play underneath for that grenade presence, which netted a couple of kills for Arial that significantly brought up their man advantage and allowed them just to hit the site, acknowledging that it was probably going to be much weaker in comparison to before that grenade play, and be able to get the plant down. And unlike last time, we didn't have someone accidentally or being forced to get off that plant due to a toxic smoke, and it just seemed like that 1vx was a little too much to handle for the lone smoke, stuck near red stairs once again. Gym and bedroom now back up on the drawing board here for Elyssar, but so far it seems like the adaptability is slowly regaining its sight here for Arial as they were just able to equalize the scoreline now 2-2.
Arial is a team that historically can sometimes have some slow starts. You know, maybe they even lose 3 rounds in a row, but they take their timeout. They're usually able to get things back underway. If you look at their roster right now, might have been more individuals. Because Reed, Jay, both 0-3 right now, but a lot of the players, or the 2 main players we were focusing on, Mohess and Freak, they're certainly having a much better start than they did on their previous Clubhouse bout against Unemployment. Reed Sync as well, also doing very good, though most of his kills came from, well, last round. So a little bit of an asterisk right there. But Arial have been heating up a lot quicker than they did in their previous Clubhouse game last weekend, and that might be what is, or the reason for why things are starting to get a little bit more close to a contest.
A good sign of hope for Arial, but also Elyssar as well, as they had a pretty good start so far in this first half and seemed pretty relaxed when they were playing on this site last time it was in play. But the major thing was a lack of proper rotates and just some slightly missed grenade opportunities as well when playing for that vertical over in the first floor. It seems like for Arial, they want to potentially try to clear out this actual extension over near Cash Room, but Reed trying to open up the Logi hatch is greeted by a Nitro Cell, gets blown up sky high, and Elyssar, in the first 40 seconds, they've got the man advantage.
Another very impactful pick, or impactful exchange from Elyssar. We saw how close those nades for Arial came last time. 2 entire sets out of their 3 were used to not much effect beyond maybe destroying some utility, but it still was an Elyssar round in the end. And now Arial have lost 2 nades that weren't even used whatsoever, taken down immediately. Arial have to be a lot more focused and a lot more impactful with where those nades go, how long they're cooked, and what have you. But Inrio facing a lot of pressure early on, some flashes landing in front of him, a nade destroying his shield, and some bullets entering his body, though Elyssar still hold on to the lead.
Strong refrag, though, to say the least. Losing out on those exothermic charge can be a bit of a hassle for Arial, especially if they have not opened up that jacuzzi wall. Eventually clearing out cache fully, they can begin to tip their way in through construction and potentially try to work their way in through sight, but a lack of information allows young Alec to get the freest kill of this round. Mo will go down, and Elyssar are up 4-2.
Freak still has 1 nade to destroy that Kia barrier, but I imagine young Alec will just rotate off fairly quickly, and at best, Arial will get 1 kill. Freak will start moving into Logi, but Vivid swings, and Freak unfortunately lacks the intel to account for that. Swing with the shotgun. Vivid looks like he'll get a 2-piece here, but instead it's Giddy to steal it from him, but still give Elyssar another lead in round count.
And I'm really shocked we had just a lack of information what construction control was in the pocket of Arial. They just walked in blind, both logistics side and also construction leading in through master bedroom as well. If they had just taken a couple of extra seconds, they probably could have removed that key barrier, since the majority of those ADS were placed over near the extension and cache room. That would have forced young Alec to go back, and that could have allowed for even more map control in those last couple of moments for Arial. And again, they weren't even that stressed for time. They could have at least given it a much better attempt to try and work a couple of extra picks, maybe get somebody to rotate over near Logi hatch to eventually force out that smoke player. But just not having the hindsight, I suppose, it didn't allow them to get that win, and Elyssar now retake the lead, now heading into Church and Arsenal.
Well, it's still a difficult situation because they
yeah.
While they did lose the early nades, they lost Reed Sync on that hatch. They trade out Inrio, but the person they trade out Inrio for, the Jaeger, is their Thermite. That's probably the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals right there. You lose your exothermic on Jim. What are you gonna do? Open jacuzzi wall with some X Kairos that are probably the wall's probably still electrified? extremely difficult situation for Arial Arise to work out of, and as you said, definitely could have been played a little bit better, but not an ideal situation by any stretch of the imagination to start out for Arial. But they get to go back down to basement now, or Elyssar go back down to basement, and Arial Arise get to go to a site that they seem to have figured out pretty easily. They just employ the strategy of Mo, Yana cloning down main, with Freak about 2 centimeters behind him, and you just take control of not only the entire map, but a good spearhead, tip of the spear, rear attacking strategy. I don't know if Arial Arise will be able to play that again, but if they do, probably going to be a 3-3 half.
Seems like Arial Arise will try to give it the good old college try and replicate that. Their lineup looks pretty darn similar. And the same thing can be said for Elyssar not having a majority of their presence on that roam extension. So once again, if Arial Arise, if they acknowledge that, they can begin to work their way over in places like Kitchen. We already see Reedsing joining that out. He can begin to apply pressure with that verticality. He can allow his Abana to step in as well, get that hatch opened up, and slowly begin to work their way down floor lower. And look at this, Freak is also already inside a pool table as well. This is fantastic map control for Arial Arise in just under the first minute.
Well, I mean, not as great as it was before. Comparatively speaking,
That is
it's
true.
awful. It's terrible. It's a joke. Though, I mean, you do really have, again, it was a previous round, but you got to commend Freak with how much he was able to get with just one single Yana. So anything less might look paltry by comparison, but still doing a fairly good job in the early round, as you said, John. Saw somebody moving up long just now, maybe trying to, or contemplating going for a C4 from below, but they'll back off instead. Arial Arise just focusing on getting this vertical control right now, and hopefully we'll also focus on getting these Valk cams, as one is not spotted by the drone. Some free intel for Elyssar.
Minute 40, or now minute 30 at least to go here. Freak begins to drone his way in through Moto, trying to hold that exact same position we saw him take control of last time this basement site was in play. Again, Elyssar, for the most part, they seem pretty unfazed, and they probably have a rough idea as to what's about to go down this next minute 20 as the hatch will get opened up in Kitchen, and now the Iona Gemini begins to work its way in through Moto to, again, try to have that exact same spearhead in the hands of Freak.
Inrio trying to get aggressive with whoever decides to cross that double doorway, but nobody going for it just yet. They still have active intel on this position. No one spotted the Valkyrie cam beneath the staircase. C4 goes out, but it too does not find the impact that it wants. Does some damage to Freak, puts him below 50 HP, but with one singular adrenal surge, he can mitigate some of that damage done to him by the secondary utility. Reedsing now moving over to Oil Pit. Hopefully pinch out this player behind Generator with Reed Adams. Pulling out those firebolts, puts one right, puts one left. Now the Jaeger trapped in a blender in the spin cycle at the moment. He's got to sprint back in, but the Valkyrie just sprints on out. Reedsing gets 2 freebies right there. Mahes picks up a third. Young Alex struggling to fight back behind this Kiva barrier, losing HP by the second. And as well, one comes in dummy, he falls, unfortunately. Freak cuts down Young Alec, and that's the round for Arial. Fairly quick late round gives Arial the 3-3 half.
Not able to work their way in through dirt because of the smoke work, having those toxic canisters. It was a full-fledged rotation by the Reed brothers, and the coordination was spot on as well, forcing the Jaeger to fall back. And I guess the call was made as well by Elyssar that the Jaeger needed backup, and there is potential for a free kill if there is tunnel vision just in the back of that generator. But we had Reedsing just keenly watching that position, expecting someone to get aggressive to back up their teammate, and allowed 2 free kills to line up for him. Essentially free kills, I should say, not completely free, and forcing that 5-on-3, getting a vital portion of the map in their pocket. They can just hop their way down in through Kitchen hatch. They still have someone watching main door. Everything was accounted for in that round, and truly having the Capitao be a little more effective than it was in past rounds as well, it went a huge way for Arial Arise to once again just guarantee they get the lead in a pretty prime spot.
Also, Arial Arise will not make the same, maybe gamble that Elyssar did. Instead of starting out on CCTV and cash like Elyssar did on their defenses, Arial Arise will say, you know what? Let's play it safe. Let's just start out on basement. They will go for a fairly wide roam, though. No Vigil, Mute, or Mozzie like we've seen before. And instead, the focal point will be the Castle, Bandit, and Azami. We've seen this Castle and Bandit roam before throughout CL previously. You usually reinforce the Jacuzzi wall and the Plat wall, put Bandit batteries on both of them, or just do Jacuzzi wall if you're wanting to just roam over in that part of the map. But with those Azamis as well, you can, well, keep a barrier the drone hole, like we saw, to make droning it out a little bit harder, or just do whatever the hell you want if you want to make a deployable shield to make the position harder to clear. That's the benefit of a zombie being added on this roam setup.
And for the attackers, it's just more utility for the most part that they have to clear through, which is going to waste more resources and time as well. And again, we've talked about this earlier during the desk and during the pre-show before we actually started up the match, how long it can take Elyssar to get those portions of the map on lockdown, to get those entries sometimes, and overall just have a good start on the attack. But seems like we are at greener pastures for Elyssar. Beautiful nade is tossed out by Wimpy, eliminating Reedsing once again. And it seems like that for Elyssar, they're going to have a much smoother time dealing with the rest of this top floor, as now Arial have to be a little more conservative throughout this round.
This game has been a far cry from Elyssar's game against Rent-Free last week, where Dexter, single-handedly, but Rent-Free by extension, were dominating the early round, or at least the opening pick. This time so far, I believe that Elyssar have gotten the opening pick every single round, save for round 3, but even then, they've traded it out a few times, but it still has, the majority of the times, been Elyssar coming away with the lead, the opening pick. Reedsink, of course, falling as well. That's a position you no longer have to worry about, but not entirely. Reedsink might be gone. You still have Mohes, Reed, Adams, maybe somebody else on the roam. Nope, Jay and Freak both down below, but still 2 players and half the round to go.
Oh, just potentially trying to burn a couple more drones, perhaps. Maybe even find a kill if someone overextends before he eventually drops down a floor lower to come back towards the site. Would be nice to have that great equalizer before you eventually confirm to that full-fledged anchor game, because for the most part, unless we see Freak potentially work his way back down to the basement floor, you only have those smoke canisters, but the timer is still ticking lower and lower. So Elyssar, they definitely need to begin to crank up that gear to another notch, especially since Reed Adams is still just hiding quite carefully over inside a bathroom. I don't think they droned him out at all, Carter.
You know, I'm gonna make a quick prediction, and I'm gonna say, based on Inrio just sprinting through the bar double door in front of bathroom, I also do not think that they have droned out Reed, unfortunately. I think he is just sitting in that stall right now. Oh, yep, Giddy just breaks open the castle barricade, and bam! There's the first kill for Arial Arise on the board. Reed is in a tricky spot now, though, because he could have tried to rotate down main, maybe gamble it, but he decided to go to strip. Perfectly understandable decision, but now he's playing for his life. Only 30 seconds left, though. Now with Freak getting a second kill for Arial on the board, this position just become a hell of a lot more impactful. Elyssar had to decide, do we want to focus on this position, maybe try to get a 3v3 before we push down, or do we just commit and worry about the flank later? Only 20 seconds to make that decision. It appears they are going to let Reed remain alive on that middle floor. Wimpy now moving in down to generator. Damages Freak with the nade, puts him down about 1 or 2 bullets away from death. But as Wimpy peeks, never mind. Wimpy wins it anyway, but he's the only one left alive. 2 adrenal surges, but 1 HP and not enough time to use his primary. Arial take the first round on defense.
And that was fantastic patience by Reed. When you see a high majority of that roam presence either die in the first minute or just eventually fall back, you're not going to expect someone just to be ratting inside of a small bathroom. You can expect that to be a map or part of the map that's just completely cleared out. You begin to work your way forward, and then it's like you mentioned as well, Carter, you now have to make that decision on such little time and at a man deficit if you want to either waste even more resources still clearing out that roam game, or if you have to just hope that you win your ones going in for that site execute, and you could potentially get that bomb down and just have to worry about that small retake you're going to see by Reed. That was beautifully played by the castle, and that ensured that Arial Rise take the lead starting off in that second half.
Moving to Jim. Could see a similar situation happen for Elyssar, not necessarily with somebody on the roam, but if we see maybe, like Arial Arise, they try to push in and take cash control, but they come out the losing end of the opening bouts and the opening engagements, it's very difficult to make a site push inward, especially if one of those people is Vivid, who tends to be inside that server position while his teammates could be clearing out, CCTV, focusing on construction. If they lose Vivid, like we saw Arial Arise do, round 8 could go very similar to round 7, with Elyssar just forced to start pushing into positions that Arial Arise already have crossfires for, or maybe even have somebody who could hit a flank and throw everything in a disarray. Elyssar need to be very careful when they clear out these offsite positions in CCTV and cache.
For Arial Rise, that X-Factor ability, especially those flanks like you mentioned, Carter, have always been pretty huge in their playbook, and seems like Mo, he wants to potentially waste even more time over near the side of Raptors, but Reed, well, he's not going to be wasting much time at all. He's already dead to rights, and he will not be a nuisance in this round. Wimpy, I believe, on the rappel was able to catch the bandit, and once again grant Elyssar that early advantage, potentially speeding up their ability to not only clear out that cash room extension, but also rotate around potentially too to get that jacuzzi wall opened up, and again have a bigger emphasis on that site push.
Yeah, Mo's now in a difficult position. With that plat wall opened up, he's got some Kiba barriers to play behind, so it's not unmanageable, but his rotate back is, well, it's gone, unless he as I was about to say, unless he hops down below and rotates down below inside a lounge, but he's got to make his way back very quickly. Wimpy on Metal Balk has taken 2 players so far off of Arial Arise's roster just by sitting there. Inrio will hop right on in as a result because, what do you know? The site's completely free. Reed gets 1 as he hops back in. That's Wimpy, the menace, now gone. He's taken Logi a key position as well, but Vivid can now start getting this bomb down, but with Mo down below, he denies it and drops Case directly in front of him with the hole looking directly up. Elyssar still holding on to that lead as fervently as they can, but Arial Arise has some powerful positions. Elyssar, they have the manpower. Mo will put up some great Kiva barriers, and that covers his complete rotation across to main stairs. Giddy has to nade it. That allows Mo to get back into the site. A big utility play and a big kill onto Inrio as well, but he's still traded out by Elyssar, playing that man advantage as closely as they can. They've done it so far. Put Reed Sync now alone in logistics. Young Alec watching with the LMG. Reed has to win this fight, but he cannot react close enough in time. Elyssar take their first attacking round to answer back Arial's first win.
And something that Elyssar have struggled with, it seems to be the main factor that they thrived at this point, the early game. That's a second round in a row we've seen Wimpy find the opening duel in under a minute, and instead of, wasting all this time to clear out the entire cache extension, they figure, well, there's probably going to be 1 anchor, maybe some light lurkers. If we eliminate that 1 anchor, we can probably just hit the site with man advantage and probably begin to tease that bomb going down to get ourselves in a post plant with the man advantage. That's always something you want to set yourself up in as an attacking team, and it almost worked if it weren't for the fact that Mo had some impact grenades and had a successful rotate by dropping down in through garage. Overall, though, because you had that man advantage and still a plethora of information, eventually it just dwindled down into a 2 versus 1. That 1 player inside of logistics was still obviously off-site. He had to retake against an LMG and someone defusing that bomb, so it really did not seem like a match made in heaven. Instead, the opposite, a match made in hell, now granting Elyssar their 4th round.
Wimpy having a much better game coming out from Elyssar so far. One of, if not, I believe, maybe their statistically worst player. Yeah, yeah, definitely statistically worst player going into today's match. Coming through positive on both the rating and the entry so far. So Wimpy not only having a better game, but unfortunately for him, Mo is also, as we said earlier, you should watch out for. He is heating up a lot quicker than he did in that previous Clubhouse match. 12-4 so far. Also able to rotate back very effectively on that Azami last time and having a big impact, despite Arial losing the round at the end.
Potentially waiting for someone to swing, but no one ends up being in that position to go in for the secret win to spawn peak. Stormman's at 5-on-5, but hey, at least no one's dead as of right now, but I need to hold my breath for a little while longer. We haven't hit that 2:20 mark or even the sub 2-minute mark. We could see Wimpy somehow find a 3rd entry in a row and again begin to have that great snowball effect for Elyssar, to have that good tempo from the very get-go. It seems that they've slowed down only a smidge, at the very least in terms of only that entry game, but they're still trying to get this plat wall opened up and go for the default strats you tend to see when Jim's in play.
Ooh, a little bit of a bait by Arial Arise right there. The drones come through. They see Reed sitting on that plat wall, and then once, maybe they hear even Elyssar start getting those lifelines into position, they back off immediately. They have Elyssar waste, I believe, both of Young Alec's concussions, or a nade as well, even if all those concussions weren't spent. Certainly a nade gone for the attack. Good play by Arial Arise. Just say, hey, we're going to bandit trick, and then just say, psych, once they start moving forward. Now they can just play CCTV and cash as they would have normally, and they're in a better spot for no cost.
With that Kiba barrier, it seems like Wimpy cannot hold the cutoff angle out on the balcony. He might need to change something up. I mean, he could, of course, try to melee it, perhaps, but it seems like he'll try to fish for some kills over, of course, near the side of Jim, maybe in master bedroom as well. Minute 30 left to go. Jay just scraping away with his life. He's able to relocate back in towards his site directly, but you definitely need to try to keep that smoke alive, especially since the pacing of Elyssar has been much faster in comparison to their previous games.
He also went for downstairs control as well inside of bar, so even if Jay falls, relying on maybe Reed to get a C4, not something you can really do. Jay still gets aggressive despite the low HP, but unfortunately for him, he dies, and even worse, he downs Wimpy, who can get himself back up on Metal Balcony. So you did a lot of damage, but you're hoping for a kill. You will have to hope for round number 10, where you can have that impact. Reed also getting aggressive on this window, sees someone's head for just a second, but all he does is cross, throws out the C4. Fortunately for him, same with Vivid, or same with Jay, excuse me. The impact is not found. He'll have to rely on his gunplay, but a nice shot threading the needle outside Jim window. Takes down Inrio, but an even better nade cooked than Reed's shot just was. finds the bandit in the face. That's 4v2 for Elyssar, taking a very strong round in Gym Bedroom. Mo put to low HP, still sitting over in CCTV and Cash. Basically puts the onus of holding out the site all on ReedSync, who's already facing some shots out from Jacuzzi Balcony. He'll push down the stairs as the flash grenades go in. Mo managed to rotate back in time, with Vivid getting the bomb down. Nobody covering. Never mind. Somebody is out on Metal Balc. Vivid will get off as a result. Nice kill from Reed. And just to get the better of Mohes in this instant, or the better of Giddy in this instance. But still, too many bodies to work through. Give Elyssar the lead.
And still being able to feed off tons of information. Alec giving the call that we still have Mo off of sight, and then acknowledging someone's over near the top main stairs that allows him to walk into sight, get that defuse down and procced, and still having that coverage, not only keeping Wimpy alive just for that man advantage and the extra gun, but also those grenades. Both him and Giddy were able to find tons of success just throwing out those frags across the site and ending up finding a couple of kills in that process as well. Elyssar now take the lead and are looking quite phenomenal on their offense, only losing round number 7. That was on Church, probably the most defended favor site. They really are looking phenomenal on paper, Carter.
I see a timeout from Arial Arise as well, as look primed to go to, well, I suppose maybe basement, maybe CCTV and Cache, depending on what they've decided. Basement, I do believe, is unlocked now at this point, so they could go back to it if they wanted to. No need to. You can always try something different. Also see, once we come back from the timeout, also see maybe a Ying coming through from Vivid, though of course with attacker repick, there's always time to change that, but maybe trying to speed things up a little bit. I know the desk talked about how that was a problem with Elyssar so far, that kind of like to old investigation file back in Stage 1 and Stage 2 of CL last year, letting executes get down to the 15-10 second mark as they start sprinting on in. A Ying was something that seemed to lubricate the gears in Elyssar's attacking strategy, or attacking machinery. Maybe here on CCTV, it'd probably be a little rude just because of CCTV is already not very great to the defense, and if Vivid decides to stick that, it would make a bad sight even worse for the defense to deal with.
Especially with a lack of a Warden, lack of Lamai, there isn't much utility that's going to properly stop those Candelas from just flying in through sight and burning the retinas of the defense. Especially if we can have it potentially try to get creative. I mean, you could always sometimes see that CCTV window hop in, but that can be a little risky even with those Candelas. Maybe something more typical, I suppose, could be flung out here by Vivid. But besides the point, it's going to be a fantastic way to probably clear out that player in Raptors potentially early on, even though there is no Capitao, and also just to stop that overall site presence as well, which is normally the main thing that stops anybody from getting that default plant down in CCTV. It just has to be those smoke grenades, the nitro cell you tend to see sometimes in the site, or even someone going in for a C4 toss underneath in that first floor near lounge.
Also have ReedSync down below as well. Saw him start early in basement. He's now rotating up main stairs. Freak as well. Both the Jaeger and the Valkyrie starting off site and across the map almost. The first 30 seconds to a minute of the round. I say a minute because they might rotate back. They might stay. Who's to know? They'll just be staying for the first 45, shooting some drones and backing off. ReedSync already looks to be rotating back to site very quickly. Station on main, and Freak will join him as well. So Arial Arise not trying to chance too much on anybody from Elyssar, pushing in through Strip Club or moving into Bar early on. They'll start moving back towards the site. Though, again, as I said that, ReedSync still down below. So he could catch Giddy or Wimpy if their droning is not up to par.
Trying to slip you up, I suppose, and also trying to slip up Elyssar. Freak is at least noticed over near master bedroom. He'll break the drone, but I mean, his position is well known, and because of that, Wimpy lands a beautiful wallbang. Once again, granting another entry at a decent time frame for Elyssar, and they are slowly beginning to trench their way over and towards construction, perhaps, but again, they not only need to worry about the smoke of Reed, but also the flanking player of ReedSync we talked about earlier, as I believe he still hasn't been detected over near main stairs, but the audio, it seems to be there. Wimpy just glances on his back, but is not able to connect a singular shot on him.
And Alec also misses the rotate. Those sitting outside the main stairs window. Oh no, he sprints away at that exact same time. Wimpy's still upstairs. Mo takes the fight. Mo loses it. Wimpy in 3K territory right now, maybe even 4K. So we see Jay start moving into master bedroom. Everyone from the defense inside of master bedroom right now. It is a party over here. And right now, Ariel seem to be the ones in the best and highest of spirits. As Inrio comes back with one, a lot of utility Elyssar now being forced to displace or forced to dispense inside of the site. I thought Inrio was over with the rest of the attack, but never mind. He is just in CCTV. John, this has been a very weird round. But you know what I'm here for? Inrio is inside. ReedSync might be as well. He would certainly die very quickly, but no, that's Reed Adams, who's also with his brother inside of CCTV and Cash. Cuts down the Hibana, and that just leaves the Ying remaining. Losing some HP to the smoke. Could find Reed Sink since he's only on 1 HP, but he has a deployable shield in his way. Reed Adams instead will just swing. And John, I really don't know what the hell just happened there.
Well, it seemed like for Arial Rise, they just wanted to and also needed to close the gap in that round. They understood that Elyssar, they have a lot of tools for the right job in terms of getting that site control and potentially getting that diffuser down. So because they were able to waste countless amounts of seconds over near that top area of Jacuzzi Wall, over near Master as well, it completely stopped Elyssar from really achieving all that much. And because we had Elyssar opt to go in for that Ying style of execute and having Ying again be that spearhead, she actually had diffuser instead of the Hibana. Whereas if we maybe saw Inrio with that case, maybe they could have gotten that diffuser down, with Arial Rise being none the wiser. But once Inrio had to give away his position, the info was there, and it seemed like in that 2 versus 2, Arial Rise, like you mentioned, were just in the better spot overall to close out the round.
I'm glad you can make sense of that, because I just all of a sudden remember very vividly, no pun intended, realizing that everyone in the entire lobby was in about 1 or 2 rooms, and those 1 or 2 rooms were not the site. That felt very disconcerting. Felt like something went awry somewhere, and I wasn't quite sure where. But for Arial, you came away with the victory in the end. You now get to go down to basement, which was the first round you won once you tried these defenses out. And this was a very, very wide roam for Arial Rise when they tried things out. But they're going for a completely different strategy here. No castles, none of that. Sticking close to the site. Maybe you have Reed or Mo running around, but nothing like what we saw in round 7.
It does make sense. If you dwindle down how the round unfolded for Arial Rise, they lost the entry fight incredibly early, and for a majority of that round, it was backpacked off a lot of Reed Adams just being in a spot to go for this heroic play that completely threw Elyssar's head on a swivel. So trying to go for a much safer strategy is not a bad idea, especially when this matchup is so close. It's literally 5-5, and honestly, Arial Rise, if they did not pull off that aggressive front over near Master Bedroom, this could have easily have been match and series point for Elyssar.
No advantage gained just yet by either team. Definitely got to be wary of Wimpy. If you're taking a fight with someone in the early round who's having a great game so far. He'll just take his time droning out, actually. Love to see it. He can get kills, and he can drone. Also for Elyssar, good to see that they're spotting these Valk cams. That was a little bit problematic for Arial Rise when they were on the attack, letting some Valk cams slip by underneath the staircases. Giddy's already prepped and watching that exact same position if there was a cam there. That just moving on forward. Really not much has happened in the first minute, 10 seconds. Elyssar have taken the vertical control. Arial Rise are down below. Hopefully things will start heating up, as Jay is certainly looking to get a kill very early on.
Got the Nitro Cell prepped. I know the black eye camera was spotted during the prep phase, but has it been destroyed yet? That's the bigger question. That could potentially allow Jay to find some success and maybe even grant that early kill for Arial Rise in a pretty decent position, since a majority of that vertical play has not gone down at all inside of kitchen, just in the proximity of it near that back hallway. The audio call given, but that Nitro Cell was detonated far too late, and Giddy as well, with great patience, just watching through the vertical hole he made moments ago, snipes down Jay, and once again Elyssar, they take the lead off in the entry count.
Elyssar have done a great job on the entry so far, but at the same time, it is still 5-5. Hasn't exactly been a guarantee to win them rounds, but at least on the attack, they fared a little bit better than the defenses, maybe. Arial Rise certainly now will start retreating back into the safety of the bomb site, whether it be Church or Arsenal. Mo looking to succeed where Jay failed, sends out that C4, and it goes all the way through the freezer doorway, takes down Giddy. The very player took down Jay earlier, but Wimpy, maybe not the opening kill, but he's able to answer back with kill number 3 total on the round so far. Second for Elyssar overall. The one thing I am worried about, Elyssar starting to run a little bit low on the drones. You got to rely on Wimpy face checking, albeit face checking on a very powerful angle, cutting off the sight down that long hallway. Mo also loses his engagement down below the hatch. Elyssar might just take match point now that the freezer drop is cleared. No more C4s as well to worry about, and only one smoke canister from Reed Sink. David is in a fairly safe spot to start putting this bomb down. Zinrio and Young Alec both get 2. Wimpy with a lengthy pre-fire gets his 3rd overall. And Cookies and Connor might just be right on this Elyssar prediction if they have one more attacking victory still in them.
I guess if we can use the terminology of Jesus on Definka, I could most definitely agree, because Wimpy has really fit into that role finally of being just that potent force to always be reckoned with, always being able to have impact on the round and just doing something for his team. Even if it's not in that entry like you mentioned, still being in that potent spot of bottom main, basically cutting the basement floor in half and also working a couple of extra kills as well to enable that vertical presence and eventually that kitchen drop down to go for the plant, and guaranteeing that Reed Sink couldn't do all that much to stop the plant from happening. He was already focused in on slowing down anyone that wanted to push their way in through Moto doorway, as he'd be in a pretty vulnerable spot if that were to happen, and also just not being able to close the gap once again because of Wimpy's position outright. It just made that site presence pretty weak, especially since Elyssar, once again, they had the man advantage and they had so much map control to begin with because that lack of a roam game, and it seems like because that lack of a roam game being a slight issue in the early round, seems like Arial will readjust and try to go for that full-fledged extension once again.
Yep, good to see the adjustments from Arial Arise, pretty much going for, yeah, exact same setup as they did before. Yep. I mean, no reason to change it, as you said. It cost Elyssar so much in the early round. Why make even a single adjustment in the op lineup? Though Reed Sink still fell fairly early on. The utility overall, as you mentioned, was able to do a good enough job. But we see Vivid going with this Ying once again. And that might just be able to cut through a lot of the noise we saw Arial Arise play once they went for that roam in round 7.
Well, seems like we almost have the first kill go down and pretty early on the round, but Reed Sink acknowledging how much is on the line. He'll just try to fall back and just only lose a little bit of HP in that process. Elyssar probably now realizing with the roam game being afoot, there's going to be a full-fledged extension on this round, so it's going to cost them a lot more time to deal with everything, but overall, they at least had a decent start even when dealing with this roam extension outright. It was just that X-Factor play of Reed Adams that cost them the round entirely, so it seems like for the most part that drone game will just need to be turned up a notch here in this round for Elyssar.
Might not even need a drone that much with how aggressive it seems Arial Arise are getting. 3 Kiva barriers all go out at almost the exact same time. Freak blocking up multiple windows and doorways in a matter of seconds to force Elyssar, if they want to hold them, to clear utility and maybe give insight into what Elyssar are prioritizing. After all, Wimpy opens up one window but not the other in Gym, though he might do it momentarily. Indeed, he will. Clearly very focused on that metal position, but now the Gym as well. Mo backing off. He has that Kiba barrier for just a smidgen of protection if he wants to play aggressive in that hallway, but as Vivid goes to open up the wall, Arial Arise should look to start retreating in just short order.
Well, Mo is now acknowledged that there's still a Finka over near the balcony. Has to be very careful as to when he wants to fall back. Wimpy caught in the reload could allow a golden moment of opportunity for both Freak and Mo. Wimpy seems aware of this though, looks away, but is ready to hop inside the building potentially, and actually hops back out once again, downs Freak, but the Bandit in close proximity. This could be a chance for a trade, but swings at just the wrong time. Wimpy remains alive and is looking to finish off the down player of Freak with that grenade, but it misses. It hits the barricade.
That was his last nade as well, so that, and the sad part is that probably could have been a 2-piece, but actually Mo just left Freak to die, unfortunately. I thought maybe he'd be able to revive him, but still it is a little bit of a risky situation, and plus, could cost some time for Elyssar to say, okay, did Arial revive him? Did they not? Wimpy now knows he can vault in, finish off the kill, and get, I believe, that would make his 4th opening kill of the attack if he does want to finish off, but no, he's still baiting Freak. He's still waiting for the down to complete. I admire the discipline coming out from Wimpy right now. I will say, so the kill finally confirmed, but so much time wasted for Elyssar. Only 30 seconds left. They have these hatches opened up. They have some vertical pressure, but Church Wall isn't open, and even if that wasn't part of their strategy, everyone from Arial Arise is still concentrated and consolidated on this site, holding their positions as long as they can for the moment. Vivid will look to start sprinting in from dirt, but that wall's barricaded, that door's barricaded. They know he's coming this way. Those Candelas fly on through. Mo's going to try to dodge this, but they likely blind him in the process. Even more flying through as the hatch drop comes through. 2 kills go Arial's way, making it even, but the C4 misses. Perhaps the most important miss of the entire round. Gideon Vivid so lethal on the coverage. The bomb goes down successfully. What does Reed do? Spots one and downs him. There's still the hatch and dirt to worry about. A lethal crossfire that Reed has to deal with below half HP. They've fallen off at the moment, or at least Elyssar have. Reed will start making his way up main stairs, but they spotted him on the drone. They can expect this. They're fully aware. Giddy's tucked himself into the hard left corner, and both him and Vivid are watching the doorway. Reed will have to get the nastiest of all flicks, but as he swings, both reveal their positions. Spots one for just a second, but can't land the pre-fire. Elyssar upsets, at least after their first week results. Maybe gets close to the team we know they can be.
A valiant effort by Reed, but an effort not enough to actually guarantee overtime and stop Elyssar from winning this match out 7-5. And in particular for that final round, I love the positioning by Vivid as well, able to get that dirt wall opened up and have tons of protection for his planter with those Candelas. It forced back the defense, fully blinded them, allowing more time for the Hibana to get into sight and get that defuse down. And funny enough, Carter, I think with Jay actually throwing the smoke on the default plant spot, that messed up the nitro cell that was flung out by the bandit, which costed them greatly as the diffuser was still going down. They were losing more and more bodies in the site, and eventually it came down to a 1v3. Reed had to retake the top floor, and the crossfire, it was there, and the gun skill was there as well for Elyssar. Great readjustment, though, throughout that entire match. They definitely deserved this win against Arial Arise.
Yeah, and overall, not only a great readjustment by Elyssar getting their first win on the board, but also a great readjustment individually by Wimpy, going from the lowest rated player on Elyssar to having one of the better performances we've seen in Challenger League so far, and definitely maybe silencing people who thought maybe, he had that really good stage in Pro League, but now that he's back in CL, for some reason he got worse. Nope. It's still Wimpy. It's still Kyle Whale. He still has it, and he might be the Finka player to replace Kento if he can continue this performance. But that's enough for John and I right now. We can throw back to the desk to break down Elyssar's first victory in Challenger League.
Tanner, an absolutely massive victory for Elyssar. This is exactly what they needed, and it was hard fought too. Arial Arise did not give up anything easily, well, except maybe the entry kills, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about round one, though, because that was in the pocket of Arial Arise, but Vivid specifically did all the right things. But there's an interesting reason, too, Tanner, and you brought this up while we were watching it. There's an interesting reason why Vivid was able to stop that plan.
Absolutely. I mean, first, I just want to say Elyssar looked lights out today. This is probably the best performance we've seen from them all stage. Entry-wise, they were getting almost every single entry pick. I think on attack, they got every pick. And then on defense, they were able to pull out these absolute great clutches. And specifically going to Vivid, what we're talking about there in round one, that looked like a sure thing for Arial Rise. But he was able to deny the plant from Jay with the Finka boost, or with the smoke canisters. And I kind of alluded to it right there, but it was the Finka boost from the side of Arial Rise that basically sealed Jay's fate, because otherwise he was going to be able to get that plant down. They put the Finka boost on. He was taking ticks like twice the rate that he normally does, because that's what the Adrenal Surge does how it interacts with smoke canisters. And he was able to get that very nice 1v, I think it was a 1v3 or 1v4 clutch, and just put up absolute a great performance. Connor?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Vivid at the bottom of the scoreboard at 5-7 on hard support. I mean, it's still a pretty dang good game because he's droning in the players like Wimpy, the players like Young Alec, the ones with the LMGs that were going crazy, and Giddy finally having another good game as well, getting back onto that soft breach role that we know and love. Giddy to Liddy on the sledge. That makes sense, as well as one of the role changes for Elyssar that I think was a massive contribution for how they played so much better today was, guess what? Wimpy's back on the second entry with Young Alec, with Enrio going back towards the secondary hard breach / flank watch role on a map like Clubhouse. Naturally, you're going to need the tool hard breach, so it makes sense to have him on the Hibana. Most likely he's going to be playing something like a Nomad or another flex operator on other maps if these roles stay the same, because you're beating an Arial Arise team that looked pretty dang good, and it was a very closely contested game with so many close rounds. But when you have two players like Wimpy and Giddy going 5-0 and 3-0 on entry respectively, constantly bringing that man advantage, for Elyssar, it was almost too easy to not lose those rounds.
It was absolutely huge, and this is such an important win for them. What better person to talk to than Enrio, who we're used to as representation of Elyssar? We've got some good questions for him. Enrio, congratulations. This was a big win for you guys, picking up your first one. Does this take the monkey off the back here, settles in a bit?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely feels good to finally get a dub after we had to wait 2 weeks after catching 2 dubs back to back. Yeah, it definitely takes the monkey off the back.
And let's talk about Wimpy for a second, because you all had a great game. I'm not taking away from any of you, but Wimpy went nuclear.
Yeah, Wimpy does his job pretty well. We love Wimpy as a pickup. We've seen how he performed well in Pro League. It was like, well, Wimpy's now LFT since he got replaced by Blast. Why not pick up Wimpy? Ex Pro League, even though it was one stage, we know he has a talent. He always has done it good in CL, and we was like, Wimpy's that guy.
And what was it about your team's game today specifically? Because although it was a tight matchup across the board, coming out with a 7-5 win, you guys killed it on entry. What was it that worked so well for you guys today?
If I'm gonna be honest, they just kept giving us free picks. They were peeking, and they were honestly just losing their gunfights to Wimpy or Giddy, or even me sometimes. They were just losing their gunfights because they kept peeking and they didn't know when to stop.
Mm-hmm. Is this the Elyssar that you want to see day in, day out for the rest of the stage?
Definitely, for sure. It feels good to win. We love this Elyssar right here.
Perfect. Well, it was exciting to watch. Thank you so much, and we look forward to your future games in Rio.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. I mean, Tanner, is there anything more you can ask from a CL matchup? That was, from both sides, honestly, so good. And both sides made such little mistakes. That's what it came down to, was a 7-5 victory like that when it's that hard fought.
I don't know if you could say both sides didn't make very many mistakes. I think Arial Rise, like Inreal just pointed it out, Arial Rise made a ton of mistakes. They did not look good at all. They're making a lot of disjointed efforts. There were some rounds on attack where they're just like they're pushing without drones, pushing without information. And on defense, like I said, they didn't get a single entry pick. They kept over peaking, like Inreal was mentioning. Arial did not look good at all. That being said, Elyssar did. And when you're playing a team of Arial's caliber, everyone needs to kind of be up to snuff, and they did, and they looked dominant. And shout out to Wimpy, because we've been giving him a little bit of flack for not being that pro league caliber player that we've been seeing, and today, he kind of shut us all out. It's a good on.
Well, we're talking about Wimpy, but I gotta say, you gotta feel bad for Mo in this one, because he was also lights out today. But hey, you can't win them all, even when you do play well. Now, one match down. The next match coming up after the quick break, we'll have West Garfield Park taking on One Shot. That's going to be a tough matchup. We'll see everyone in a few minutes.